Welcome, everyone. The time is now 4 p.m., and to be respectful of everyone's time, we will get started. And so I call this meeting to order at 4 p.m. If I have, I need help. What do we? You call the meeting to order, right? Yes. Okay.
And you did.
And I did. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the agenda is approved. Let's continue to move forward. Anything you'd like to say as we open up, Co-Chair Beeler?
No, I'd just like to say a much belated thank you to the members of the committee for electing me as co-chair. I'm very honored to serve. I wasn't having the greatest day last month when we met, and I neglected to say that. This is probably one of the most helpful committees we have.
Indeed.
And it is an honor to serve
Awesome.
alongside my co-chair.
Happy to have you. I think we have a lot of great things planned for this JEC committee, so I'm excited to see what comes out of it. Let's start up. Any other announcements from board members or committee members? Terry, if you could give us the announcement of the dates that we have coming up so that we can know that for sure. And then also the topics, if we have those. I know I just sprung this on you. I apologize. March 24th? All right, perfect. 4 p.m. And the topics for the March one, we discussed that we will have the recruiting. So March 24th will be about recruiting and diversity within the school system, and we'll have a presentation by Mr. Scott Bolton. The May 26th one will be about the facilities and possibly even food services, and even the May 26th will be, he's coming in July. So the May 26th, we're going to talk about facilities, and we're also going to talk about COVID, the outcome of that when it comes to education. And then the July 21st one is when we will have the tax conversation to give time for the actual budget, and Chris Caldwell and Ron McPherson to get together to create a presentation. So given that those are the overviews, if you have any specific questions or anything, content that you want to come out of that, please let us know so we can make sure that the presenters are prepared to present on that. Any questions? All right, let's keep it moving. Budget updates, my favorite.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think some of the board members, probably a lot of this is going to be similar to what you heard a couple of weeks ago. So I provided an update to the board. To the full committee here, kind of tell you where we're at. So obviously we're tracking sales tax very closely. That's a huge driver in our budget. It accounts for about 30% of our revenue to support the operating budget. 45, 46, 47%, something like that is BEP. Those are relatively stable in installments. So there's not going to be a huge fluctuation in that. Once you receive your notification of what your BEP is going to be for the year, it's pretty standard in 10 equal increments. So we don't see wild fluctuations there. But with sales tax, that's the big driver, so to speak, because it's totally dependent upon consumer spending. That's the one we watch really closely. So we have 4 data points so far posted. That would be July, August, September, and October. November's should be coming in any day. We ran 2 months in arrears as those are posted because the state collects the dollars, then they send the local portion back. So we should have that within days, anytime. But I can tell you that through 4 data points based on trend information, we're projecting an annual surplus of about $22 to $23 million. Again, this is very preliminary because there's still much of the year left. But it's still good news. The month before, we were projecting an annual surplus of just north of 22 million. So the trend is kind of holding up over the last 2 months, right? So that's on the positive side. We're holding steady, but every time I talk about this, I want to caution the board and the commission to not view this, if this holds true, to not view this as some sort of a windfall, because we have with COVID, we've incurred quite a large price tag for expenditures. I'll go over those here in a second. We're hopeful that November, when we get those numbers, will continue to be positive. Nationally, what some economists are saying is that November, December may not be quite as positive as they had hoped. What does that mean for us? We really don't know for our community. So I don't anticipate anything being catastrophic when we get these numbers. I can tell you that. So we're just hopeful that we'll continue to kind of hold the line with that projection. Again, we'll know more. We should know more any day with November, December. About a month away on that. But that's going to be really crucial because that will reflect holiday spending. And so we want to pay really close attention to that. I will tell you too, what is also helping us, I think, is the fact that we budgeted very conservatively for this year. We are running about 7.5% more in sales tax collections as of this time last year, and that's pre-COVID, right? So spending is actually up in spite of COVID, and so we budgeted conservatively. We're actually running about 15% higher than budget, so that's really serving us well. And I think that the revenue picture probably within about 8 to 10 weeks will really start to take shape, because we will have the holiday consumer spending numbers, plus we'll have a good part of the property tax revenue. For the months of December and February, 70% of property tax collections come in those 2 months combined. So we should have those numbers here within a couple of months. So I think the revenue picture is really going to start to take shape. So again, keeping our fingers crossed. So let's talk about expenditures a little bit. We anticipate by the end of this year, of this fiscal year, we will have incurred over $10 million of COVID-related expenses. Now, the bulk of that relates to virtual learning, about $7.5 million of that, which were positions and equipment and so forth. The remainder, the other 25%, is personal protective equipment. So if you've been in our schools, when you walk in, you'll notice the big thermometers that you walk through. They would include that. Hand sanitizer. I mean, we must spend probably like I don't have the numbers in front of me, $400,000 or $500,000 in hand sanitizer. I mean, it's astronomical. Sprayers, masks, all of that. So there's about $10 million of unbudgeted costs for this year's budget. So when we talk about having a surplus of $22 million, half of it's gone right there, right? And then so you want to have reserves, obviously, going into the next budget year as well. Also, our one-to-one initiative, our device costs, that doesn't include those costs because we used the first round of CARES Act money, or the bulk of that, for one-to-one. For phase one. That didn't get the whole entire district, but that's phase one. So we've got the next 2 phases coming up in the next couple of years as we kind of replace older devices with newer devices. That's probably about $5 to $7 million a year that we're going to have to at some point build that to the budget. Now, some really good news, what they're calling ESSER 2.0. That was the legislation passed in late December, I think it was, maybe towards the first of the year. For the school system, preliminary indications, this is from the state, is $50.8 million to Knox County schools, $50.8 million. Now, that's to be, so you have a few years to spend that, right, through September of 23. Here's where, ultimately what you can spend that money on, it has to be COVID related, right? It has to be a result of the pandemic. Now, that can take a variety of things. So that money can provide like huge relief to our operating budget, because we were going to have to program that recurring cost that we funded our one-to-one devices. Now we're going to have to fund that in our operating budget. So these dollars will help provide huge relief to our operating budget, right? So you can't use these dollars for just normal operating items, but we can use it for COVID-related items that otherwise would have had to be programmed to the operating budget. So you can pretty much use this money for whatever you could, whatever was allowable in the first round. You can use it for this round. So we're really strategizing on how we best can use these dollars. We're kind of walking that hand in hand with the budget. We're in the budget development for the next fiscal year, the next school year. So what you do, how we decide to program or to utilize these CARES dollars, again, it's over a couple of years, will greatly impact or provide the direction on how we want to work with our general purpose budget, right? So, those things are really crucial that we make sure we spend these monies in the best way. So, we'll have more information on that as the weeks roll on. So anyway, next year when we go into the budget, there are things on there, that we're going to take a hard look at. Compensation enhancements for our teachers. We didn't provide any raises for teachers this year other than those eligible for step increases. Health insurance, we've had $2 million more of costs that we'll have to program in because we have more participants coming onto the health plan. There are also things that we reduced out of this year's budget that we'll want to look at if we can find a way to reinstate those for next year. The thing that always jumps to my mind are school allocations. So we reduced school allocations by 50% for this year. When you couple that with the fact that schools has received less in revenue, football gate sales, right? So that's one that comes to mind. Then that's really putting a burden on schools. So schools, if you add all of that up, cumulatively, schools receive $200,000 less than what they normally would receive. If you look at the last couple of years, that's cumulatively. But it is putting schools in kind of a tough situation because their allocations were already reduced, and then now you have something like this. So, we want to take a hard look on trying to restore things like that. We also made, some things that we wanted to increase, like interventions and mental health supports. We need to really bolster those, specifically in regards to COVID, especially because it's created even greater need. So we want to look for ways to get more money into the budget to do some of those things. Some of that, incidentally, might be allowable under this new money, the new federal dollars. So that would provide some help if so. Again, we're taking a look at all of that. Textbooks, we didn't purchase textbooks. That's about an $8 million price tag. In the current year ELA adoption cycle, we didn't use that money. We pulled it out. Just didn't have the money. So we can't keep doing that. So anyway, that's, again, revenue looks really good because we budgeted conservatively, and consumer spending is much better than what economists were thinking 9 months ago when COVID hit. So that looks really good. Expenditures, again, that seems to be the challenge because we're incurring the COVID-related costs. But the new dollars, federal dollars, will help. We'll just need to be very strategic on how we pair that with the general purpose budget. So anyway, I'd be happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ron, the dollars from ESSER, this 2.0 money, are you saying that some of that could be used to pay ourselves back for the COVID-related expenses?
Yes, sir. I think so. In fact, we used part of the dollars for the first round to do that very thing for expenses we encountered at the end of the last, in the spring. Mm-hmm. So that's one particular strategy we could use. We could say, okay, we've encountered $10 million or incurred $10 million of unbudgeted costs this year related to COVID. What we may choose to do is reimburse ourselves, $10 million from that money, because what that does is that puts dollars back into our fund balance. We have to watch the fund balance really carefully, right? Because there's some requirements, state requires certain levels. So that might be a strategy, we may want to use. We've purchased textbooks out of fund balance for years, So those are some of the things we're having to ask ourselves. Do we request, we maybe request reimbursement. I'm not saying this is what we're going to do. I mean, there's a lot of money here. But we may, for something like that, you replenish fund balance, you put that back into fund balance, your account, and then now you maybe have enough to now purchase textbooks with it. Textbooks might be an allowable cost, but if they weren't, some other things that we would use.
It could give us more flexibility in the other dollars.
Absolutely. Yeah. Far more, yes, sir. Mm-hmm. So like, for instance, teacher raises. Obviously, you can't use the federal dollars for that. But if you can provide relief to your general purpose budget that otherwise would have had to incur those COVID costs, then that gives you some breathing room. So, yeah, textbooks or any, salary increases, whatever. So that's why it's really important.
Do you know how the state came up with the amount that they're giving to Knox County?
Mm-hmm. So they receive, I can't remember what it was from the feds. I think it's maybe 1.1 billion, right? The state of Tennessee. So then what the state does is they look at our Title I population, economically disadvantaged students. It doesn't mean you have to spend it necessarily at Title I schools, but that's just how they allocate the dollars. And so they looked at all of that through all of 139 or 140 days or whatever it is, did a per pupil cost, that's how you got the money.
And in your professional judgment, do you think that formula works better than the BEP?
Definitely. The BEP is, well, I won't get into all that. There's some.
So there is a way that they can calculate differently.
There's some huge challenges when it comes to BEP, obvious for errors, for the physical capacity and all of that. So, yeah, I would much rather it be received this way than
awesome.
BEP.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Did you say when we might be receiving this money?
Sir, there are federal programs folks that speak to that better than I could. It will be available before. I mean, it would be available, I think, to tap into before this fiscal year's out. So it's not. I don't think it's going to be anything way down the road. Okay. I'm afraid to say. I'm almost wanting to say March, but I don't want to be quoted that way because.
Right. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so
right,
much.
thank you.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Great. So we have an understanding of where we stand with the budget, and good news, I guess you will say, despite everything that's going on. So that's silver lining. Let's go ahead and move forward to agenda item number 4, the legislative priorities. And so on the sheet, everyone has the priorities that the Board of Education sent forth to our legislators as a board, saying these are the things that we want you to focus on. So I'll give people some time to look over it, and then I'll ask my school board members, to just kind of highlight anything that we really want support of the community or county commissioners to advocate with us. And Board Member Horn, if there's anything you want to add, and this, just let me know. So we'll take a few seconds to look over it. Okay, and I will say that we, at our last board meeting before we voted on these priorities, we did have a conversation as school board members should we vote on the topics individually, but this year we decided to just, as a board, support what was already presented, and in the future it might look a little different. But does anybody have any questions, or anybody want to advocate heavily for a certain topic? I know we do have some new information about do we have any new information about the teachers harmless? Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any questions, and specifically county commissioners, because the board members have labored over this many hours.
The, kind of explain the school grading. Of course, back in the caveman times, when I went, it was A through F. What's wrong with A through F?
Okay. Who do we have that can speak to that? The school grading.
It's not like kids or the school.
Sorry, didn't understand the question there, so I don't hear as well, so, but about grading,
Yeah, why?
well, just the stigma that's attached, you know, the school maybe, they don't meet the, for whatever reason, achievement levels, chronic absenteeism, or whatever, schools graded, a school is assigned a letter grade like an F. You know, that's the stigma that goes along with that is not really good for the school, nor the school district, nor for the kids or the parents either, because schools are trying, you know, as hard as they can. Nobody sets out to say, hey, we're going to fail today, and we want our school to fail. You know, our teachers are working really hard, our principals are working really hard, our students. So just to assign letter grades in fairness to the schools and the students that attend those schools, it's just I don't think a good way to indicate how that school is performing. I guess what's a better way? I don't know that there's a better way, but
Is this a student grade or a school itself grade?
a school itself grade, a letter grade for the school.
Okay, I
So-
thought it was a student grade. How are students graded?
How are schools graded?
Is it still A, B, C, D, or is it?
Yeah, it would be, what the conversation has been is to assign A through F. And at the school, you know, just looking at certain things, like a high school might be looking at graduation rate, it might be looking at, you know, chronic absenteeism by each school. There's several factors. We could have our REA department come down and talk about that if you want to in terms of how that would work. But they just look at the achievement factors at the school, and just it's a combination of things that weigh certain percentage on all those things, and then in the end a numerical grade comes out, and that numerical grade is an F, then that school is labeled as an F school.
So if it's not A through F, what would be the grades? What are we looking for? Are we looking satisfactory, unsatisfactory, or what? I mean, do you have to have a grade?
Do we have what, Carson?
Do we have to have a grade?
Oh, no, we don't. I mean, I
Is
don't.
this something that Knox County's doing, or is this?
No,
state required?
this is coming out of the legislature.
Okay.
So State Board of Education legislature. So the superintendents are not for that, again, just for a lot of the reasons I talked about. And, you know, we're trying to make progress every day with every child, with every school. And, you know, if you're labeled, you know, well, you attend an F school, then, you know, what's the purpose of that other than just being demoralizing, I think, to students and parents and community? Because like I say, you know, schools, all our schools have the goal of providing the very best educational opportunity we can with students. The problem is, you know, not all students come to us at the same level from the standpoint of having the early childhood experiences. So, you know, some children are starting behind, and it takes time to, you know, for them to catch up. So I just don't think assigning a letter grade A through F to a school is a good way to do that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
So Carson, a little background there. When they went from No Child Left Behind to the new ESSA reform law, Tennessee had the option, and our commissioner at the time pushed the A through F grading. It's been tried in a lot of other states without success. And the problem is the criteria, you can miss it by a small percentage point and drop a whole letter grade, say, and the superintendent could probably address that better than me, but if you have, you don't have 97% of your students in attendance, or you're rated on tardies, or different things that sometimes the school system has no control over at all. then they can be downgraded. And it's proved in other states to not be effective. And Tennessee had a chance to get it right. And unfortunately, we opted into the A through F way of presenting our schools. I think most of the TOS and the superintendents wanted more of a item by item, so parents could actually see where the school was doing well, where the school needed to improve. This doesn't do that. It's just an A through an F grade. And from what I understand with the governor's proposals yesterday, is that they will let, and this may or may not come to be, but they will let the schools out of A through F grading this year if they agree to test 80% of our kids with paper and pencil. So blackmail would probably be too strong of a word, but that's what I understand is the way it's being proposed, is we could opt out of that. And I don't know, I'd say John Roswick or the superintendent knows more than I do, but that's what I've read so far. So we could get out of it if we agree to test everybody 80% with paper and pencil. Is that accurate, John, or do I have misinformation?
No, thank you, Ms. Manager. You're accurate. I just want to say to make a plug for Knox County Schools. Here's one reason why that's problematic for us. We're the largest district that's on block schedule. So that means we test half of our high school students in the fall and then the other half in the spring. And so for everyone else, they've kind of gotten this warning ahead of time to be ready for spring testing, where we just had a situation where 14 of our schools were closed 2 weeks out, and then the final week of testing, the whole district was closed. So the way that works in the testing world for security is a lot of those tests are two-part, like math tests. And if we'd given the first part, we had to void the whole test out. So I'm saying we're at a bit of a disadvantage on that 80%, and we're doing the same thing you were saying, Ms. Bounds, pushing back on that, saying, at least let us appeal to the commissioner because we had a situation with COVID that we were in. So, and I'll just, John Roswick's plug too. It seems weird to me because the more data points you have, the better, right? So if you're under 80%, it counts, which I know is they're trying to incentivize you testing 80%, right? But the data is not going to be as reliable if you're under 80%. If you're over 80%, you have more data points, which makes it more reliable, and then you get a pass. So I get where they're going, but that's why our stance from the beginning was we believe in assessment. This year, we're scared about the conclusions that could be made from it. So anyway, we've continued to say that. So, but thank you.
Thanks, John. And so with all of our hard work, we could be an F system, or individual schools could receive an F grade this year.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I also want to just accentuate the point that Knox County Schools is not saying that it's opposed to accountability. We're saying that we're really trying to advocate for a different way to talk about it. And to me, I think it has to do with a lot of the way we talk about education that is stigmatizing. I mean, a lot of times when we talk about failing schools, what we're really talking about is a school that's in a historically oppressed community. And so, but we want to make it about the failing school instead of the things that are around that school that maybe have led to that over time. So to me, it's simply trying to say, how can we talk about this in a way that doesn't stigmatize students in schools, but that does provide the accountability that's needed. So
I was just going to try and help Commissioner Daly as well to answer his question. Commissioner, Tennessee.gov has what's called a school report card, which is what takes the place of a letter grade, and you can break that down by school or by school district, and what it does is give you certain statistics on several different indicators. 6 of them, are primary, but then it's even got some other indicators. So you can look and see how a school is performing, just not giving an overall letter grade.
Thank you, Commissioner Daly. Any other questions? Or anything that any school board members want to heavily emphasize on the priority list?
Madam Chair, if I can just make a comment about the school voucher section. I also want to point out the fact that Knox County Schools is not saying that we're opposed to choice. We're saying we're opposed to the method that is often proposed when it comes to choice, which is vouchers, which is a different conversation. And choice sometimes has been over politicized, but the idea of choice by itself is not what we're saying we're against. It's really the method in which the state has advocated for choice. So,
Thank you.
I just want to emphasize holding teachers harmless. And that even comes from a standpoint in a non-COVID teaching situation. And it kind of goes back to the A through F grading system for schools, in my opinion, because if we are in a true disparity, a school with true disparities, then it may not be the teacher. It could be high absenteeism. And I'm actually speaking from experience, where I had a student who never came to class, except the one day she came was state testing day in U.S. history. And guess what? She didn't pass. And that fell on me. So that's why I want to really, especially in COVID-19 times, really emphasize holding teachers harmless, because they are burning the candle at both ends right now, trying to teach virtual, trying to teach in class, doing them at the same time. Oh my gosh, I've been a sub for a teacher who had 6 in-person kids, and she and the rest of the class were virtual. And she was teaching all students at the same time. And so they are doing everything in their power. And so I really want to emphasize this and drive this home with our legislature.
Thank you, thank you. I will say that our legislators, they have this copy, and our board chair did an amazing job with getting us all together on via Zoom call and emphasizing it even more. But this is just lingo for you all to have if you want to call up, or if you're going to dinner with one of them recent soon, that you can say, hey, this is what we're focused on. So these are just the language that we are, and we would love to have your support. So moving out of Knox County School Board, I want to pass it over to my co-chair, Commissioner Beeler, to tell us what's going on the commission.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't really have Terry print this out for the purpose of going through all of it by any means. There are some things on here that may or may not necessarily have anything to do with the school system, but I wanted to at least be able to see where there is some overlap. One of the things the commission is doing on several fronts is fighting for as much sales tax revenue as we can get from the state, particularly in the sales tax administrative fee that the state's historically been charging. If you see the bottom item there on the front page, the state charges a 1.125% administrative fee, and we just feel like that's too much for the world we live in now in 2021. There's just no reason for that fee to be that much, and so we're advocating for the legislature to reduce that. And there is an item there, obviously, about the BEP
budget item and line item in your budget, and so having that full picture to see these are the other things was killing the money drain as well. So thank you for presenting this. If we can get Superintendent Thomas back up here to kind of talk a little bit about the BEP just a little bit more, because that BEP, man, woo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll take just a minute. I think one important thing, and I was up here before, so I didn't think about this at the time, so thanks for allowing me to come back. But I think it's really important on one of the all the legislative priorities are important, obviously, but in terms of hold harmless with BEP, in conversations with legislators, what that could mean to Knox County, if we're not held harmless, and all the superintendents across the state agree to this and are talking to their legislators, but we lost this year about 2,200 students, and we're funded on average daily membership. So a loss of students equates to a loss of funding. So what does that mean to Knox County if we're not held harmless? That could mean $8 million in our budget that we wouldn't get from BEP money. So in any conversations you have with legislators, if you just stress the point that asking to be held harmless with the BEP for this year, we believe those 2,200 students, or most of them, are going to come back to us at some point in time. So if they do come back next year, and we have to suffer an $8 million reduction in BEP, that's going to be really difficult to overcome. And I just got word today, there may be some more federal money coming. We don't know at this point. Of course, change in administration. But there's been some conversation among legislators, I'm hearing, that, hey, if this money comes, then maybe the hold harmless is not necessary. Well, the problem with that would be if there are restrictions are on this federal money, that again doesn't help us in terms of trying to compensate for a loss of $8 million in our general purpose budget or our operating budget. So I just wanted to feel like it's very important that, that everybody understands what that could mean to Knox County schools in terms of BEP funding. So thank you for the opportunity to just mention that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Thomas. Okay, moving right along to discussion item number 5. So this isn't necessarily about budget per se, but this is something that is going to session February 5th, and this will also lead us into our next conversation, which will be March 24th around recruitment and diversity. So I just wanted to introduce you to the educator diversity policy that's being put forth with the State Board of Education. I had the opportunity to meet with Representative Mike Odom, who is on the State Board of Education, to kind of just talk to him about this actual policy and to get a feel about where the board is. And he says that his board is pretty much in favor. So just an overview of what it is. It allows local school boards, it requires local school boards to set goals for educator diversity and report those goals. That's pretty much all there is. It's not necessarily, and it's going to be up to the local school boards to put the teeth into making sure those goals are met and that accountability is there. And that's what Scott Bolton will talk about at our next session. But I just wanted to introduce this to you all so you can see what is going on February 5th when it comes to teacher diversity. There's also a tool on their website that you can, on the state education website, and you can see how each state in the United States does when it comes to teacher diversity. And Tennessee is actually in the green. But I sit on a committee that works statewide around this stuff. Tennessee's in the green because of Memphis and Nashville. It's not in the green because of Knox County. So there's a lot of work here in Knox County that we need to do and that we're doing on the board side. But just to give you an idea for the county commission to understand what we're doing here so that you all can, because I know that there's a lot of jobs and workforce that's out here that's saying, hey, we need to recruit diverse candidates and get more diversity into our community in Knox County. And so this is to show you that we're doing our part on Knox County schools. And so the idea is that as a whole community of Knoxville, we'll continue to do our parts with putting policies in place to get what we need to make sure that we're serving our populations. Any questions about this? And again, we will have a full presentation by Scott next week to talk about what we are doing, but I just wanted to introduce this to you all because it will be passing, prayerfully, February 5th it goes before it's on the second reading on February 5th, and so it did pass the first reading.
If this passes, is this a task force that would be formed?
No.
To make sure? Okay.
Honestly, that's the second full paragraph from the bottom is really what all the policy is. Okay. It's just that each school system has to set goals and they have to report their goals. That's really all there is. And that's really all that this Board of Education can set in place because it will be up to the legislators to put teeth or pick it up if they really want to take some action across it. So the state board is actually as tied as pretty much everybody else. It's really going to be up to our legislators. So if you want to have conversations with the legislators and say, hey, this is something that we need to do and we need to have actual measurements from the state legislation, then that is the conversation you can choose to have.
I just hope it doesn't fall by the wayside. It seems like, we have these conversations all the time. It's like, oops, we tried and we didn't make it.
Yeah.
Forgive us later. So.
Yeah, and I think that, again, that's where it's going to be up to your LEEs to have that type of accountability with your superintendent and the rest of the school system, or the legislation taking it up to say, hey, this is what we expect from each. But each district throughout Tennessee is completely different. Mm-hmm. And so this policy is vague for that reason, because your diversity needs to meet your community, and there's communities that will never have certain numbers because it's just the location.
So would it require all LEAs across the state to follow this? I mean, kind of going back to what you just said with, of course, some districts wouldn't be as diverse as others just because of location, but is it a requirement? Are there repercussions if the local boards don't set these goals and that sort of thing? Is there accountability for it?
From my understanding in the conversation that I had with Mike Odom and his team, you're just, what's your plan and report your numbers. That's really what it is. So there's no teeth.
So is there optional buy-in by, say, a school district that's got a very small student population, or just any school district in general? Is it optional buy-in, or does every school system required to do it if it were to pass?
Every school, if there's somebody out in the audience that can correct me, let me know. But from my conversation that I had, like, you have to create a plan and submit that plan, and whatever that plan, like, there's no right or wrong plan. And in this policy, it gives you some suggestions of what you can and can't do.
But essentially, all school systems would have to at least attempt it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Is that what that word attempt?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary.
Yes. I mean, when the state board passes a rule or a policy, all your state LEAs are required to pay attention to it and to follow it to the best of their ability.
Thank you for that question. Any other questions about this? All right. Any other comments, questions, or concerns before we adjourn?
Could we get a possible update on the status of COVID in the schools and where we're at, if that's possible? Because I don't keep up with that part of it very well, so I apologize, but is that possible? Or I know we have one in South Knoxville. Is it still red? No, they're out.
Yeah, we just, Moreland Heights, I think, Sturkey, of course, virtual learning right now, Northwest, virtual learning. Actually, coming back to school this semester has been really pretty good in terms of our attendance, actually looking better than it was obviously when school was out at the end of the first semester. So our teacher attendance has been in the 90% range. We, again, continue to contact trace with our school nurses. That was a concern because the health department's no longer, they're more focused on vaccinations and so forth, but we're still contact tracing with our school nurses. We were doing that in the fall, so that basically meant a little change for us. So we continue to watch the numbers every day and look at our fill rates with substitutes. They've actually been a little bit higher this semester than what we ended with last semester, I think even going back to November. So knock on wood, I mean, right now, feel like we're in pretty good shape with in terms of what the active cases and quarantines and so forth. So we'll just continue to watch that every day. We meet every day. Our HR department and our school nursing department talk every day too about quarantines. We continue to talk to the health department. So right now, again, things have been pretty good so far this semester. Now, that obviously could change any day, but we'll just continue to watch those numbers. And we committed in-person education to the parents of 45,000 of our students. So the goal is to try to be in person as long as we can do that in a safe manner every day. But if we need to go to virtual learning platform at a school or at a particular grade level, speaking of, we put Cedar Bluff Preschool, I think, they're on not virtual learning because they don't have computers, but we're doing educational packets for the preschool for Cedar Bluff. So we just continue to look at schools on an individual basis and maybe even grade levels at a school on an individual basis. So I just want to thank County Commission and thank our board for the opportunity to fund I know it was federal dollars, but you approved the funding to get us to one-to-one school district, which we could not have done, obviously, without those federal dollars, and obviously without your approval to get those computers in the hands of our teachers and students before school started to allow us to do this. And we went, I think fall semester, we went to school 70 out of 75 days, instructional days, which was really good. And we'll see what second semester brings. So, but things are in really good shape right at the moment. But again, I know that could change at any time.
Can I just add, and Carson, just to speak just to South Knoxville, I can tell you that I check in with our administrators every week, and they've told me since we've been back, they've all said things have been good except for that situation where we had to go red with Moreland Heights. But they were also appreciative that we acted quickly when we needed to so that it didn't get worse. So the feedback that I've gotten from them the last couple of weeks has been pretty reassuring.
And we've surveyed, right now we have a survey out to our staff about vaccinations. So we've had, I'm not sure what the numbers on that show. They have people have to Friday to get that information back to us, but I think it's coming in a pretty good clip in terms of number of educators, and that's not just teachers, but staff, school staff, bus drivers, substitutes that are interested in the vaccination. If we could just get them, we're working with, when I say get them, get the vaccinations, we're working with Children's Hospital on a plan to be able to administer those vaccinations. So hopeful that things will improve rapidly with that. So we'll just see.
Well, thanks for your update. I was concerned with they call it the surge, after Christmas. We're back, 2 weeks now?
2 weeks.
Yeah, and thank goodness we've not had a real surge, but I don't expect it to get better until we get 50, 60, 70% of us vaccinated. And Richie and Courtney and Daisha, we're all getting emails. When can we get vaccinated? It's not to the point that you can't get vaccinated. It's the point we don't have them.
Right.
If we could order 470,000 doses, we would do that. If we would order them if we could get them. We can't get them. That's the biggest problem. And once we get to that point, and hopefully we'll start getting more in and get people vaccinated. I'll probably be one of the ones I will probably take it because I got some health issues. So we got to be patient. I understand, and we get phone calls that, all the other counties around us has got, vaccine. Well, they're not 470,000 people. They don't have 30,000 senior citizens over the age of 65, plus health workers, and I think, are the teachers now, or they're in the next phase?
Their next phase.
Yeah, in the next phase. So you got what?
1B, I think.
So you got another 10, 20,000 employees at the Knox County Schools?
Probably about 10 looking total if you look at substitutes and bus drivers. Well, bus drivers are not employees, but counted within that group, about 10,000 probably. And it's powerful, and this is controversial, as powerful as this virus is, wearing a face mask, washing your hands, physically distancing, avoiding crowds. I mean, I think, again, what our teachers and administrators and students have done this fall with masks and following the protocols, I think is what has allowed us to have as good a semester in the fall as we had. And I attribute that situation now to the folks in the community rallying. If I can wear a mask to protect you, then I'm gonna wear a mask. Hopefully you'll wear one to protect me. So
yeah, just like I've always said, follow the golden rule. We don't need mandates. We don't need regulations. We need people follow the golden rule is what we need.
Thank you. Anything else before we adjourn? Anything, Co-Chair? Awesome. I think this is a great first start of the year as we continue to have conversation and share information for our the two largest bodies in the county, and so only maybe, yeah. And so I like the conversation, I like the discussion, so I look forward to our next meeting, which will be March 24th. But as of 4:54, the meeting is adjourned.